Constpedia is a platform that solves one of construction's oldest problems. There is no single, reliable source of truth for productivity rates. Every company, every estimator works from their own data, built from their own limited experience. Constpedia changes that by letting the entire industry calibrate these rates together. In this video, we will walk through how the platform works, the methodology behind it, and why crowd intelligence is the best way to build accurate construction data. But first, let us start with a well-known experiment. Professor Jack Trainer filled a jar with 850 jelly beans and asked 56 students to guess the count. Individual guesses were wildly inaccurate, some way too high, some way too low. But when you average all 56 guesses, the result was 871. That is only 2.5% off from the real number. Only one student out of 56 actually beat the group average. This has been replicated many times. Michael Mauboussin did it at Columbia Business School with 73 students and 1,116 jelly beans. The group average was 1,151, off by just 3.1%. Only 2 students beat the crowd. The principle is simple: individual errors cancel each other out. Overestimators balance underestimators, and the average converges toward the truth. This is called the wisdom of the crowd, and it is the foundation of how Constpedia works. So why does construction need this? Consider a simple question: how many man-hours does it take to install 1 square meter of formwork? The answer depends on the country, the project type, the crew experience, site access, climate, dozens of variables. 2 experienced estimators on the same project will often produce significantly different numbers because they are working from completely different baselines. And that is the problem. Construction productivity rates are fundamental to project estimation, planning, and cost control. But there is no single, reliable, living source of truth. Every company maintains its own database, built from its own limited experience. Published reference books exist, but they are static, expensive, and often limited to specific markets. And there is no mechanism to cross-check your rates against broader industry data. The result is an industry-wide gap. Every estimator is essentially working in isolation, with no way to validate whether their numbers are in line with what thousands of other professionals are seeing in the field. That is where Constpedia comes in. Constpedia is a web-based platform at constpedia.com where construction professionals collectively calibrate productivity rates through a structured voting system. It is both a rate database and a knowledge-sharing community. The platform currently covers 901 construction activities across 6 countries: the UAE, United States, United Kingdom, Saudi Arabia, Qatar, and Turkey. That is over 5,400 individual rate data points. Activities span all major disciplines: civil works, concrete, MEP, finishes, structural steel, and more. Here is the key part: each activity has a rate for each country, and each rate is independently calibrated by professionals who have experience in that specific market. So the rate for formwork installation in the UAE is calibrated by professionals with UAE experience, while the same activity in the US is calibrated by those with US experience. The data is shaped by the people who actually work in these markets every day. So how does the calibration actually work? When a registered user views an activity rate, they can cast a vote expressing their professional opinion. There are 5 options. Much more means the activity requires significantly more man-hours than shown. This increases the rate by up to 15%. A bit more means slightly low, increases by up to 7.5%. About right means the rate matches their experience, no change. A bit less means slightly high, decreases by up to 7.5%. And much less means significantly fewer man-hours, decreases by up to 15%. One important rule: each user can only vote once per activity per country. This ensures no individual can disproportionately influence a rate. And users can see the current crowd-balanced rate and convergence graph before voting. They are not guessing blind. Research has shown that when people see the aggregate consensus before contributing, the crowd's accuracy actually improves compared to blind guessing. Now here is the critical mechanism that makes convergence possible: progressive step decay. The impact of each vote decreases as more votes accumulate. In the first 50 votes, the discovery phase, each vote can move the rate by up to 15%. This allows large corrections early on when the initial estimate might be significantly off. Between 51 and 100 votes, the refinement phase, the maximum impact drops to 5% per vote. Smaller corrections refine the rate closer to the true value. After 100 votes, the stability phase, each vote can only move the rate by 1%. At this point, the rate is well established and no single vote, no matter how extreme, can significantly shift it. The formula is straightforward: new rate equals previous rate multiplied by 1 plus base step times vote impact. The base step is 0.15, 0.05, or 0.01 depending on the phase. The vote impact ranges from -1 for much less to +1 for much more, with 0 for about right. This means the rate is always proportional. A 15% adjustment on a rate of 10 is 1.5, but on a rate of 100 it is 15. Let us see this in action with a real example. Concrete pouring for columns in the UAE. The initial rate was set at 10.00 man-hours per cubic meter. But industry benchmarks for this activity in the UAE typically fall between 5 and 7 man-hours per cubic meter, so the initial estimate was too high. Here is what happened over 10 votes. Vote 1 said, a bit less, the rate dropped 7.5% to 9.25. Vote 2 also said, a bit less, down to 8.56. Vote 3 said, much less, a bigger correction, down to 7.28. Vote 4 was, a bit more, a slight pushback up to 7.83. Then vote 5 said, about right, no change, confirming the rate is in the right area. The pattern continues with votes oscillating between small adjustments and confirmations. By vote 10, the rate has settled at 7.20 man-hours per cubic meter, right in the 6.5 to 7.5 range that matches UAE benchmarks. The crowd corrected a 43% overestimate in just 10 votes. Notice the confidence tiers at the bottom. From 0 to 9 votes the rate is marked new with a red warning. From 10 to 49 votes it shifts to building consensus with an amber notice. After 50 votes the warnings are removed entirely, the rate is considered calibrated. This graph is what the platform actually shows on every activity's detail page. It is a visual record of how the rate evolves with each vote. Let us look at the 4 lines. The solid line is the actual rate as it changes with each vote, starting at 10.00 and dropping to 7.20 after 10 votes. That is the raw convergence. The red dashed line is the max or high estimate. It starts wide at 12.50 when there are no votes, maximum uncertainty, plus or minus 25%. As votes come in and the crowd starts agreeing, it narrows down to 8.10 by vote 10. The green dashed line is the min or low estimate. Same idea, starts at 7.50 and narrows to 6.39. The blue dashed line is the weighted average, where more recent votes carry greater weight. It is the platform's best estimate of the true rate. Together, the min and max form a confidence band. The key insight, the band narrows as more votes come in. Early on, with high disagreement, the band is wide. As, about right, votes accumulate and the crowd reaches consensus, it tightens. With 50 or 100 votes, this band would be much tighter, potentially down to plus or minus 3 to 5%. Here is the practical takeaway. If your own estimate for an activity falls within the min-max band, you have crowd confirmation. If it falls outside, that is worth investigating. It could be a project-specific factor, or it could signal a baseline assumption worth revisiting. Now, an important question, what about the initial rates? The platform has 901 activities across 6 countries, that is over 5,400 individual data points. These initial rates were generated with AI assistance based on available industry data. They have not been individually verified for every activity in every country. Some may be accurate, others may be off. That is expected, and by design, the platform's entire purpose is to let the community correct them. But the system does not just rely on hope. There are 4 levels of error protection built in. Level 1, voting itself. If an initial rate is off by up to about 2x, the voting system will naturally correct it within 20 to 30 votes. That is the convergence mechanism doing its job. Small to moderate errors get fixed organically. Level 2, warning banners. Activities with fewer than 10 votes display a red warning, unverified initial rate. Between 10 and 49 votes, it becomes an amber notice. After 50 votes, warnings are removed. This makes transparency built into the interface. Level 3, error reporting. If a rate appears to be off by 3x or more, users can submit a rate error report directly from the activity page. Reports require a minimum 30-character justification and are reviewed by administrators with severity-based prioritization, normal, warning, or critical depending on how far off the rate appears to be. Level 4, request new activities. If an activity is missing entirely, users can request it be added. The admin reviews and creates it, and it enters the calibration cycle from scratch. The database grows based on what the industry actually needs. Beyond the calibration engine, the platform has several features designed for day-to-day use. The rate database lets you browse and search all 901 activities, filtered by country, category, work package, and phase. Each activity shows the initial rate, current crowd balanced rate, vote count, and confidence level. The manpower calculator, called Compute on the platform, lets you input an activity, country, quantity, and duration to calculate required manpower, total man-hours, and daily output. It uses the crowd-calibrated rates as its basis, so as rates improve, your calculations improve automatically. Country comparison lets you view the same activity across different countries side by side. This is particularly useful for multinational projects and international cost benchmarking. The comment section is where Constpedia goes beyond just numbers. Professionals can share project-specific context that a single rate value cannot capture. For example, someone might note that formwork in Qatar took 18 man-hours per square meter due to access restrictions at height, or that a UK rate is realistic for ground floor works but increases significantly above the fifth floor. Over time, these comments become as valuable as the rates themselves. Error reporting allows users to flag rates that appear significantly incorrect. If a rate seems off by 3x or more, users can submit a rate error report directly from the activity page, with a minimum 30-character justification. Reports are reviewed by administrators using a severity-based system, normal for ratios between 0.5x and 2x where voting can self-correct, warning for ratios between 0.25x and 4x that require careful review, and critical for extreme errors beyond those thresholds that are prioritized for correction. And the convergence graph we just looked at is available on every activity, giving you a visual history of how each rate has evolved with the crowd's input. The vision behind Constpedia is simple: to create the world's most trusted, community-driven construction productivity rate database. A living resource that gets better with every professional who contributes. The mission is to apply the proven principle of collective intelligence to construction estimation, enabling professionals worldwide to calibrate, validate, and share productivity knowledge openly. The core belief is this: no single estimator, no single company, and no single reference book can capture the full complexity of construction productivity across every country, every project type, and every activity. But the collective experience of thousands of professionals, each contributing their own piece of knowledge, can converge on something remarkably close to the truth. Just like the candy jar. Head over to constpedia.com. Browse the rate database, look up activities in your market, and if a rate matches your experience, vote about right. If it does not, vote accordingly. Share your knowledge in the comments. Report anything that looks wrong. The more professionals contribute, the more accurate and useful this resource becomes for everyone. Building knowledge together.